is Melvina Dimmott, and I've done the training on the Windrush training to interview our prestigious elders of Reading and to talk about their experience as Windrush generation, their experience about coming over to the UK, the motherland as it was described then, and talk about their experience of how they felt, what happened, and basically it's their story. So I'm here now with Joe Bell, who's kindly put some time aside to talk about a little bit about his experiences as a Windrush generation. So hello, Joe.
Hello.
Okay. So glad that you had given me this opportunity to speak with you about your experience.
My pleasure.
And so I think probably to start off with, it was what was your first experience about coming to the England to be part of the Windrush generation, to help build the country from the war, effects of the war, and been invited by the Queen and country to come and help build the country up. So over to you. What do you... Yes.
Firstly, I must say that I am of the Windrush children. Because my parents and them were the first, and they left us behind as a child. So it had dramatic effect, although we didn't know that at the time. Because I was 4 when my mom came to this country, and she was the first out of 13 children to leave on her own to come to this country. And then after a while, as it happens, most of these parents sent for the children. That was home. So I've never met my mum, and so it was excitement to come to England. So much so that all my friends that I grew up with, when you had to come to England, you were so excited, you almost forget about your friends. You just jump on that boat because you come to England with all this excitement, because we were taught about the mother country. We were taught about England. We knew in school we sang "God Save the Queen."
Wow! Yeah.
Every morning when we go to class. So I was very excited. And then the surprise came when we landed to this country. I came over on a boat, and the first port we started was an island called Madeira, Portuguese island. And when I came up off deck from the boat, I looked up and I saw smoke coming from my mouth. So I quietly run back down deck and then sort of peeped my head up again. So it started from there. Then we landed in Southampton.
And how long did it take from the time you left the Caribbean to...
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
And we had to look after ourselves. What used to happen was your parents someone would be going back to the Caribbean, and they would ask them to look after you. So they get on the boat, and in those days they were younger people. They were probably in their 20s and 30s going back home. So you get on the boat, and they didn't, they were enjoying themselves on the boat, and you had to look after yourself basically. But they were your guide. Yes, and then the journey from Southampton again. What an experience! I think in those days it was probably about 2 or 3 hours. But from the little island I came to, the furthest it took me 10 minutes to get any place, especially if you were in a car. So that was an excitement, and then just looking at all these houses in a row.
So which country did you come from? Which?
Grenada is the main island, but I'm from the small island called Carriacou, which is only 13 square miles. So you could imagine coming from that environment to England and the size of the journey.
Wow, that is from a small island to a bigger island. Just to sort of put it in proportion, we went on a day trip when I was in Carriacou. One of the teachers decided to send us on a day trip around, a school trip, and after half an hour we were back in the schoolyard wondering what we should do now, because we've already done it.
But then, yeah, and it took me these hours to come here.
Right. Okay.
So we then got to sort of London after all this long journey.
Wow.
And my biggest surprise is sort of when we were taken to the place where we were supposed to be staying.
Yes.
My parents and them were staying in Larbert Grove at that time.
Larbert Grove.
Yes.
Okay.
Latimer House.
Right.
And
Yes.
Latimer Road area,
yeah.
and Latimer House, and had to climb these. Well, what seems to be a lot of stairs.
Yeah.
Climb
Yeah.
these stairs. In this room that was shared. On the top of the stairs was the kitchen area.
Okay. Right.
Side of the kitchen was the bathroom, which all was shared. So the kitchen was in an open area
Right.
where all the families that was in that particular compartment
Right.
had to cook. So you had to go outside and cook on the stairs.
And how many rooms was the house? And how many families?
I don't know,
roughly?
but we had 2 rooms.
Oh, 2
We had a
rooms.
family room,
Yes.
big family
Right.
room. Mum and dad had
Yeah.
a room, and then a small room there for the rest.
Oh,
That was
okay.
rented.
Right.
But in that house, our other family members used to stay. So my uncle,
Yes.
my aunt,
Right.
at that time. But it was other family members, friends,
Yes.
because the uncles and them came later.
Yes.
But it was friends of my mum and
Right.
that time.
And the house, was it rented? Or was
They
it
were all rented.
rented houses, right?
All
Okay.
rented houses.
Right. Yes.
They all
Yes.
rented houses. We didn't stay there too long because that was very, just didn't like it.
Right.
I felt homesick straight away.
Straight away. Yes.
I left home where I could run around. I had the whole acres and acres of land.
Yes.
I could do whatever, to go into that place with shared kitchen, shared bathroom. It was not very nice.
Not very nice. I think I remember someone saying that from the Caribbean perspective, all the houses look the same.
All the houses, you couldn't tell where, you didn't know which. Well,
yeah.
and that was worse when I came to Reading, because at least in London you had the tower blocks,
Right.
and you was in that area. And because I didn't stay there that very long,
Yes.
I didn't have the opportunity to find out exactly that area, because at that time my mum and them had just decided.
Right.
One of the friends had come to Reading, and as usual, word of mouth, they
Right.
would have passed on to another one and says, Reading, save your money, come on. Or
Yes.
what my parents and them did
Yes.
was they saved up for the money, and they give some money to my uncle,
Right. Yes.
and he bought the first house in Reading.
Okay.
And after he's bought his house, then
Yes.
my parents and them, they all save up, and then they give my parents and them sort of work. They work the system so that everyone will have a deposit,
Okay.
helping each other.
Was that like a partner?
They used to use the partner, but
Right.
that's probably how they saved the money.
Oh, right.
But what they did was, because you needed a certain amount of deposit,
Yes.
you probably would take too long on
Right.
your own to save the deposit. So
Okay.
they use the system. I will help you, and then your turn after to help you. So they all moved to Reading. Now, Reading was, because I spent a couple of months in London, Reading was so different. This is where all the houses and all the chimneys and the smoke coming up from the chimney, and it was better because it was a house,
Right. Yes.
but we had to go into the outside
Okay.
bathroom.
Yes. Oh, yes. Outside bathrooms. I heard about this. Yes.
And boil the water to have a bath and everything else. And as a child from the Windrush, this is where, at that sort of age, because I was 13, this is where the problems really, I said problems, this is when I really begin to feel the pressures of being in England. And I hated every moment of it, because my parents was working 12 hours, my mum was working, I had to go to the factory,
Right.
I had to get my brothers and them up for school in the morning.
Right.
So I I was a carer, basically.
Okay.
Well, I thought I was a carer. And resentment
Right.
coming back, leaving home.
Yes.
So then, I don't want to use the word didn't like my parents, but it was coming from the environment. I think as a child,
Yes.
all these trauma started coming.
Okay.
And you begin to feel, why am I here? Why did you bring me to this hellhole? You know, I just didn't understand any of that.
It must have been very difficult as a young
Very,
person
very difficult.
to be moved from the sunny climates, your home that you've known for all these years, into a
Not meeting your parents, your mum for the first time. And instead of having that wonderful sort of love and great bonding,
Right.
the country and the environment did not allow you to do that, because my mum got up at 6 by 5 o'clock to go to fan the pumps to work in the factory.
Yes. Okay.
Come home in the evening, my dad was doing 12-hour shift.
Right.
In the day, I couldn't run around the house because he was sleeping. I couldn't wake him up.
See. Wow.
And all these things.
Yes.
At school, when you go to school,
Yes.
you then start having people calling you names and the strangers.
It must have been so. It's so horrible to have people call you names and so forth. You know,
Yes.
especially when you've been invited to come.
Very, very, very. That was not on the agenda. And it was not on the agenda. And you go
Yes.
to school, and the first thing that they did when they put you in school was they put us in the lowest class.
Lowest class. Right.
Regardless to your education, we had good education. They put us in the lowest class
Yes.
at school. And then you had, as a matter of fact, my class, the most place they used to put us was in the class where we had sort of the people from the Asian community who couldn't actually speak English at that time.
Okay. Yes.
Because we spoke English in the Caribbean.
Right.
And so again, that was added pressure.
Added pressure. So you'd be in a classroom and they'd be saying, now tell us your alphabet A to Z, and you'll know it, and they don't. And
But you begin to learn. I used to you end up, you know, but you could work after the parents
Yes.
and the parents and them used to take very keen
Right.
and look out for you and go to school and go to the teachers and says, actually, I've seen my child's homework,
Yes,
I've
right.
seen my child's work, and this is far too easy for him.
Okay.
And that way they progress, because there were lots. The school that I went to, we had lots of other West Indian children,
Right.
and some of them were they were doing well, but they were obviously the ones that were in the country a little bit longer,
right. Okay.
or some who were born in the country. So we then got on, because the parents kept an eye on our education and ensured
Yeah.
that we.
That's good actually. So so when you moved, so when you spent time in the education system, were there any subjects that you did very well in that you thought that you probably wouldn't have done so well if you was back home, or was it more or less the same?
No. After a while, because I said I was 13 years,
Yeah.
and we could leave school at 15.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they held me back for over 2 years.
Oh.
They held me back for 2 years. My mum decided, tell you what, you just got to get an apprenticeship,
Right. Okay.
because it wasn't her work. As a matter of fact, there's a story here.
Yes.
I used to come first every term in
Yes.
my class, but I was never put up into a higher stream.
Wow.
The 1 year I came second.
Yes.
The person who came first went up a stream. But my class was full of mainly Asians
Right.
and a few West Indians. This particular West Indian, a good friend of mine,
Yes.
but he was from St. Lucia, and he was a white West Indian, and he went up in class, and I did. And my mum decided, this is the time I've got.
That's absolutely terrible.
So there were prejudices in school.
Yes.
Teachers and them were that they used, and there were the discipline was very. But having said that,
Yes.
I don't want to make it, because I had lots of people that was in
Yeah.
our school that did very, very well.
Very, very well. Yes.
Yes,
Right.
and so it was just one of those things where I got there, and my start, and I guess my mental feelings about it and my behaviour, in the sense that I wasn't easy in the end because of all this, and because I had missed home, and it took me a while to settle.
To settle down, because obviously being in a school environment where you can do everything that they've told you can do, but you're still in a class that's lower.
And the worst, I think, the worst thing as far as I remember, that happened, that had the effect on me, is the fact that I resented my parents, because I thought they took me from my loving environment and bring me to this. So to start with, until I became older and started to understand the sacrifices that my parents made, because I did not understand the sacrifices.
Right.
It was just, it's only when I became an apprentice and I started working, and I started seeing all these older West Indian ladies working in the factory, the work that they did, what they had to do. Gosh. I realised.
And they had to work hard, I understand.
Hard,
clocking in, clocking out.
Absolutely. And the family bond that we had with those elderly West Indians always looked after us. Always, myself and another West Indian. They were first 2 apprentices in that shop. Right. And they always used to come and give us advice. When I certain jobs, I used to say, I'm not doing that. They used to come and say, have a go at it. Don't refuse. I remember someone saying to me, never refuse to do anything. If you don't do it, you don't do it. Never refuse, because they come and say that you refuse.
Okay. Wise words.
Wise words. So when the job came, I used to do that. So I had lots of help. But the biggest help that I had was seeing the environment that they work in, seeing how they were treated, and begin to understand what they had to do for me to get me into this country. Right. Especially the amount of money that they used to get and what they had to do. Right. So I began to understand that.
Do you want to sort of expand a little bit about how they were treated? Were they treated differently to white people, or?
Well, from the stories when your parents and them, and you could see you could see how they reacted to certain things. I don't think our parents were. What's the word? There seems a bit timid among the pairs.
Right. Yes.
Not as vocal, as not as assertive,
right.
as that they are.
Not as confident either, probably.
I think they were confident. I just think that they did not want. They knew that they couldn't upset the apple cart.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I think it's you have to play
the game.
You have to play the game.
Play the game.
You can't be as until you get your and. I think it's just the hard. I think it's just the hard work, the amount of overtime, because they were working hard all the time, and to send, because they had to send. Again, I didn't know this. The amount of money they had to send back to the Caribbean to look after the family.
And how do they send the money back to the Caribbean?
They used to just post it.
Post it in those airmail envelopes. I remember.
Yes, because back home, I remember that as well. You're waiting for that. You're waiting for the letter, don't you? You're waiting for the. I thought, yes, the money. Yes, it had to come in cash. You were waiting for. You was waiting for that.
Right. Gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it's the experience of that, especially the amount of work, because parents used to work. They used to do their 10-hour shift or whatever. And to make up their money, they always had to do overtime.
Overtime, right.
So, they always had to do overtime.
Right.
They had to come home and do a lot of work again to look after the children. Before they go to work in the morning, they had to make the breakfast and leave it there so that the elder children warm it up. And so their life was It was a tough life. It wasn't like you look now and you see the mum and they're having a bit of time to play with the children and everything. It was, I got up in the morning, didn't see my parents.
Yes.
The food was there in the pot.
Yes.
We warm it up if we were old enough to do that. Come home in the evening and do a little chore. And then to have a little bit of time to go and have a sleep.
So sometimes you'll probably be at home with your younger brothers and sisters, and you'll be the man in the house at the time because your parents are out working.
As a matter of fact, I mean, that's, like I said, being a teenager, and when I mentioned about resentment, you know, at that time, I felt that I was here. I came over as a babysitter. Or, you know, those things went into your head.
Yes.
I'm so glad that my parents and them, as yourself, we all live to a good old age, whereby I could have those discussions as a man with my parents to say, this is how I felt. However, I've seen what you've gone through. I understand how hard. I understand what you went through. I understand that you were fighting for me to give me a better life. So, because sometimes you don't get the opportunity to do that. And you don't. So I had the opportunity to do that, especially, as I said, from the experience of watching, working in the factory environment as an engineer, and watching all these West Indian ladies and men doing those hard jobs, just counting bottles coming down off a line on night shift while I'm playing cards because I was an engineer at the time. But so it gives me a good grounding on how hard my parents were, and from then I begin to understand.
But like the sacrifice they made.
The sacrifice that they made.
Yes. The sacrifice, just to get a better start in life, I suppose.
And again, I was very fortunate in the sense that at school, as I said, we had a good group of West Indian, and the community, we were a good group, and we gelled together. We helped each other. We were not Grenadian or Barbadian. We were just all friends. We had a little friends. So because of that, lots of the migration from London to Reading and having a West Indian community in Reading, all that helped. Because we had places to go, we had friends to look after. In the days of the skinheads and all those sort of things, if they were around, you know, we had our own group, and we knew how to look after ourselves. So that was it.
So when you, as young people, sort of get together as a community, were there places that you'd go to in particular, like a pub or?
In those days, mostly the park. Because there wasn't so many, and we still never really have enough venues in Reading. So we used to go to the park. On a Sunday, we always used to gather around and go to the park. I offered certain girls to listen to David Radigan on the radio. People from the Oxford Road side come up, go down to Kensington Road Park on a Sunday. So the park was the gathering for our group.
Group of people, okay.
The park was there, and we had people's family home was a good gathering place for some, you know.
Oh, family home.
Yeah. Well, someone living, because your friends, your friends' parents you was always allowed to go by your friends' parents and have.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it what we call like the front room?
The front room. No, you couldn't go in the front room. You could anywhere else but the front room. Anywhere else but the front room. Yes, yes.
Okay. And I suppose, what about churches? You know, because I know a lot of West Indians, when they came over here, they were still very religious. You know, they'd go to church on a Sunday. Yes. What was it like here?
Well, it was okay. I actually went to the Salvation Army.
Right.
Because my mum wanted me to play music, so I went into to join the band.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So we had to go.
Yes.
We had to go to church, and one of the things that our parents and them did as well, very much so. My mum was every excursion or anything like that she sent us to, whatever, however she found the money for. You know, the boys' camp was going away. I went to boys' camp, so she did quite a lot to take me off the street. So there was always
something for you to do.
Something for me to do. So we went out, whatever boys were camping, we went in that. So because I think our idea was to take us off the street, so that we're not on the street playing and all the time and getting into trouble. Yeah, so my parents were very strict. There's certain times you had to come.
It's like they were able to make sure that you kept safe and that you didn't get into trouble, and keep yourselves occupied, you know, with activities after school.
Yes, definitely kept us on the straight because, as I said, they were very aware of the situations and the dangers and how hard they had, you know, and the strife that they had to go through, the prejudice that they faced. So they kept us off and always warned us about that.
So your experiences, you know, with the church and everything, that's very, very interesting. So what year did you arrive in England?
1966 I came to England.
Was it in the spring?
It was in March, so it was for me very, very cold. Very, very cold, and the surprise and in those times the cold weather, you know, later on come to winter, walking and just sliding and hitting you, just coming from nowhere, just sliding and hitting you on your backside. It was very, very tough.
So you're saying you came here 1966 in March, and it's cold, and
then the winter, and in those days we had winters,
proper winters
with the snow and the ice and everything. And like I said, it was, why am I here? Why did my parents bring me to this place?
Right.
Yes, it was very difficult. And the food, again, it was almost okay for me because most of the time if I don't want something, I don't eat it. But there was always something there. But some of the food, or we could get our provisions. So our parents and them definitely one thing here. We had some West Indian, well, not West Indian shop. I think they were mainly Indian.
Right.
But we could go and buy our bananas, and in those days we were still, you know, the favourite was still the Caribbean food. We could get our oxtail, and we could get our pigtail, and make the soup and everything else. So the food, fish and chips was okay. I think it was a good surprise, but the rest of it wasn't. You know, the bubble and squeak and those things, they weren't very nice for me.
The bubble and squeak. That must sound funny.
Well,
Joke.
Absolutely, definitely.
Bubble and what?
Bubble and squeak, yes. But again, the fish and chip van. I mean, that was a good experience because the fish and chip van used to come around in those days. You get your fish and chips on the plate. I don't know if you remember getting it from the newspaper.
Yes, I remember the newspaper.
But the van used to come around all the time. We used to have which was very strange to me. You had the fishmongers used to come around the streets every week shouting out rock salmon, you know, selling the fish, and Dad and them used to send us to run up the road to buy some of those food.
So which part of Reading did you settle in? Was it the East Reading?
We were in East Reading, Cemetery Junction.
Oh, Cemetery Junction.
Yeah, Cemetery Junction. Right above the gas tanks and everything. Well, not above the gas tanks, but the gas tanks was in view. Right by the river.
Oh, by the river. It's Reading.
Reading, it was okay because I was just like we had enough. The community had already established.
Right.
So for us at my age and my parents and people of my parents and them had already laid the framework.
Oh, okay. Yes. Right.
The framework. So there were things for us to do. There were established.
Were there like clubs? Like I remember there was like an after dark club and
For youngsters like ourselves, yes.
Right.
But primarily for us was the shebeens and the house parties.
Oh, I see.
So we were the generation where the house parties were the main thing. Everyone's have a birthday. We clear on the Saturday, spend all day taking the chairs and putting them upstairs to a different room and clear the room and then all your friends come in, bring a bottle, and you have a party. Next day you have to bring back all the chairs and everything else back into the room. So that was our entertainment. Yes.
Okay.
And there were a few of the bigger houses, like one of the main places. You say the After Dark came later, but one of the biggest our party was an elderly gentleman by the name of Godfrey that lived on Southampton Street.
Oh my gosh.
That's where all the
parties.
Yes, so Godfrey was he had the first club really. He had the first club.
In his house?
Yes. In the big house on Southampton Street.
Right.
And they all had basements.
Yes.
So
That's right.
So that's where we used to go.
There's some big houses on the junction, isn't it? Where you got Pell Street and.
That's right.
Oh.
Right on South Cross. So
Yes.
in there and the basements every Saturday you go into there. And then obviously the pub, the Jack of all side where all the at that time, the group, I was about to say elderly, would do West Indian men, but I wouldn't use that now because I don't think they would like that. But that's where they used to socialise and go for a drink, right? And there's a good crowd, play dominoes and everything else. So like I said, it was very much easy for us because there were established places that we could go, unlike when our parents and them first moved down there. Probably was much like my parents and them when they had to go to a party. I think when they first came down they had to go up to London.
Oh, London. Was there particular places in London that they go?
There were several clubs.
There were several places.
There were several clubs. I can't remember the names of that. So.
And did you find, when you were in Reading, did you find people leaving their areas like London and coming to Reading to party, to socialise?
Later on, as things goes on, we go up to Oxford, and then Oxford will come back down.
I see.
As young, this is what the youngsters do. You go up to a certain place, someone says to you, "That's a nice club," and then you meet friends. So the people that you meet up there will come down to see. But we really, not until a little bit later on, we had the After Dark club and everything else that was established.
So, as a young man, making England your home, how did you find the local people that lived in Reading? Because it's a different culture. So you moved into a town that was predominantly white, English, and it had how did you find?
Me personally,
some friendly, some not friendly.
It wasn't too difficult because for me personally, as I said, we had an established group of people that we're still friends with from Alfred Sutton School, from Wilson School. So we had our group of friends that we did things to. And then through the working environment, when I worked, I made a lot of friends, so it wasn't difficult for me. I know of many people of my age, and I have lots of friends who had difficulty. But personally, I didn't, and I think that was again because I worked in the end when I did my apprenticeship, I worked in a predominantly white environment, and I started playing rugby and I made lots of friends.
Oh, that way.
So
Yes.
it's.
So
I didn't have too much problems here,
right,
and
yes.
again I would say partly of my upbringing, because my parents and them were really strict and they guided me
Right.
in that sort of way.
Yes. Okay.
But I knew how to, coming from the Caribbean, and as I said, I knew how to handle.
Yes.
I was not timid, so if someone, I was able to physically
Yes.
and verbally.
Right.
So I was able to reason with people. I was able to stand up physically, so I wouldn't let you intimidate me
Right.
at that time. So I was able to, and I found, especially in England,
Yes.
what I found with English people at the
Yeah.
time is if you were able to stand up and reason for yourself,
Yeah.
you were okay. Because they're always used to that word, you were okay about this. That was the biggest thing about when you were having problems
Oh, yeah.
with prejudice or anything.
Yeah.
You're okay, but it's the other one.
Oh, that's how they used to get round it.
Yes. Once you stand up for yourself and,
Yes.
and they realize, oh, yeah, no, it's not you, it's the other one.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
None of us sit here. There's no screaming kids here, is there? It's peace.
Yeah. So when you were playing rugby and then you had your apprenticeship, roughly how old were you then? How old roughly?
I was probably about 22
Oh, okay.
and those things, because I was just sort of,
Yeah.
coaching, and
Yeah.
I, started family, etc. And I had a lot of help, because the story with the rugby, as a matter of fact, because I went to the club that I joined was it was an old boys school.
Oh, right. That's
So
interesting.
we weren't allowed to be there. And talking about myself, this is how it happened. We went to the wrong club. Myself and a friend, we got off at the wrong bus stop.
Oh,
We walked into that club,
yes.
and that club was Reading School All Boys. Even very snobby at that time. Special bar. We walked into the bar. I turned around to my car. We realized we was in the wrong place. Everyone was looking at us and said to me, "We're not walking out.
Right.
We need to
Yeah.
front it out."
Right.
And we stayed there for a little while.
Yes.
And then someone who was a very good friend of ours came and introduced himself.
Yes.
And through that, he invited us to come back, and that's how we remained that club. And to that day, that club, because I started after a while,
Yes.
I started to meet some West Indians to play there. We started Reading West Indians, which was been a very famous club in Reading
Okay.
and right over. And just through that, one guy. Well, first of all, it was the fact that we decided that we weren't going to sort of run out of that place
Right.
and make ourselves embarrassed.
Yes,
We thought
right.
we'd front it out. And one guy introduced himself to us, and through that, the club was very successful and Reading and merged and taking a lot of West Indian players. So much so that that club later on, as we were playing, they used to call it the Black Club.
All right.
Yeah, the other clubs in the area were all West Indian playing for them.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
That you just got off the wrong bus stop.
But
you
there are two clubs in Reading were off the wrong bus stop.
But just because off the wrong bus stop, you made a change
Yes.
because of your personality. You decided.
Well,
We're
myself
not going
and
to-
my friend,
we're not- yeah.
Mr. Hines, we said
Yes.
we're not.
We're not going. We're gonna front it out. We're gonna stay.
Yes.
See what they say.
Yes. I wasn't going to walk out running. If they asked me to leave, then perhaps I would.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to pretend that I didn't know that it was coming.
That is very good. Yeah.
And just sort of going back into our youth, we were involved in a lot of things like myself and the wife, the Polo Club. So we were heavily supportive of those people who started various groups to ensure that our community was thriving.
So what sort of groups were you a part of?
My wife mainly
Yes.
would part with Vince and the Apollo Youth Club,
Apollo Youth
and the days we had St. Benedict's, which was a pre-Borstal. Again, other friends. I used to support my friends and everyone who worked there.
Yes.
The YMCA. I used to be other youth clubs in the area. I used to sort of always helping because of my rugby. I was never committed. I was never the main man, but someone go and help if someone needs me to go. So
So it's like
I was a good supporter and helped
of
with
community
whatever.
spirit then.
Yes. Whatever activities. If you needed someone to
Yes.
do something, then
Right.
I would be willing to do it. But I was never sort of the volunteer. That I didn't want a title.
Okay, right.
I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't want a responsible title that
No.
you are this, you
Right.
are the secretary, or you were that. No, I will help because I was very heavily involved with the rugby.
Yeah. And it sounds as though you were very community focused.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes.
Community about being together and supporting each other.
Yes, we
Yes.
knew. I think that's one thing that in those days we knew we had to be a group.
Right.
We knew we had to look after each other,
Yeah.
and we knew we had to support each other because it was the rough time with the skinheads and everything else when we were travelling and coming back from parties and everything else. It was.
So when the skinheads are around, did you have to sort of like make sure that you were in groups, like 2 or 3 of you, to walk the streets and to sometimes?
Yes,
Yeah.
certain times you did
Yeah.
that, but we were just so that because we were always had good friends and we
Yes.
was always together.
Right.
I think they were more wary of us than
Oh.
we were of them because they know that we had the support.
Right. Okay.
They knew that we could get support.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Wow.
But I as I said, the biggest as the sort of child of the Windrush, the biggest what's the word I'm looking for, surprise that I had was the feeling of with my parents and when I came here, and it's a sad indictment that I felt my parents and them. I didn't give them the due respect at the time because I thought they were, they brought me over here to the sort of resentment I had at that age was
Yes.
very, very. It lives with me today in the sense of knowing how hard and what they had to go through for them to do that.
Yeah. I think it's like I think I might have said it. It's like a big sacrifice that they had to endure a lot of. There were some good things, but then there was not so good things. Did you feel, as like a young person, growing up in your early 20s, did you find a lot of probably younger men were so that couldn't handle the climate and the people here, that they become sort of like changed, not for the good but for the worse, because it was hard, with racism, with being bullied, being picked on, jobs.
I could only hazard a guess that, especially what I talked to you about, in the sense of how you feel. If other people was in my situation and didn't have the support around them, because I was very fortunate. I had other family members around me all the time, and if I could go by my aunt and I could have something to eat. we still had the same spirit as we had home.
Right.
By all the family looks after, so I could go by my aunt, and that's my home. I go by my aunt Nellie, that was my home.
Right.
It wasn't anywhere else. So that way I didn't go off the rails.
Okay.
Or it, it wasn't such a big trauma. But other people who probably didn't have that support, that trauma would have been.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Because I was able to sort of had the feeling.
Yes, right.
But I could vent that feeling somewhere else, or it doesn't get amplified.
Yes.
Because I could go somewhere else. But if you didn't have an outlet for those feelings, then it becomes serious resentment. And I guess there were lots, because I had lots of friends that you could say, went off the rails.
Yeah. Yes.
And you couldn't speak, we went to the same school,
Right.
and you couldn't quite understand why they were so different, why they were so angry at certain things, why they didn't learn to understand that you have to compromise,
Right.
and this type of thing. And like I said, again, because they didn't have those mentors like I had when I started work, because I worked in a factory. I worked in the factory, lots of West Indian people, and they all wanted me to succeed. So they helped me. If I did something that wasn't, they will always pull me up and says, that's not the right way to do things.
Okay.
And I was fortunate that I had that in that environment. Those people who probably wasn't fortunate enough to be in that environment, to get those guidance, that probably became into a bit more violent.
Right.
So I think I was fortunate.
So it just goes to show that your support system was able to help you navigate through all the different elements of your life.
Yes.
In that era.
Yes.
So.
No, carry on. Sorry.
So. I mean, you speak about your story, in the Windrush era, and how do you feel about being a part of it now? I mean, coming up to 2023, where we can sort of rely on your good self, your story, and others who experience Windrush. How do you feel going forward about your story to help other young people to understand, and that you've been a part of the backbone of the country?
I feel proud of this in the sense that I'm part of it, and I could see a mapping of the area from when I first come here to what I've seen, to see how much we have progressed, and to see what our young people are doing, the achievements that they're making. Still feel a little bit disappointment that some of our young people are still having difficulties.
Yes.
However, the structure is there for them to move on.
And how does it feel when you? I assume you've gone back home.
Yes.
And how does it feel when you go home to then talk about your experiences and then come back to Britain? That sort of thing.
I love going home. I love going home for the holiday. I think the sad thing about home sometimes is depends on where you go. It feels like you're not at home. It feels like you're not at home anymore. I feel like a visitor, which is the sad thing.
Right,
because I've been here so long. It took me a while to go before I went back home, and I think that is the sad thing about us, because we are almost a visitor in our own island.
On the island.
Yes. think that's the sad thing. However, I know for some friends who have made the trans and go back,
Yes.
and they build a home and
Yes.
they go back, and they're very much at home.
And
So
right.
it's an individual thing.
Right.
I don't think it's
Yes.
across the board.
Right. It's how you feel,
It's
isn't
how
it?
you feel. As a personal
Yeah.
feeling, when I go home, I just, because I'm married.
Yeah.
My wife is from a different island,
Right. Yes.
and we didn't bill, so and islands have different, especially the small island that I come from.
Yeah, right,
It
yeah.
is a very, very small, and that is too small for me now.
Right.
Because I said so small. It's so small that you get down there, and it's just a little too small for me. It's lovely for a beautiful holiday
Yes. Yes.
to carry on. You know, you would do everything that you want to do in a day.
Right.
So it's not home anymore, and that's a regret. But
Yes.
that's how it is.
It's how you feel, and that's you know. But you made UK your home.
Yes.
You sound very proud of what you've achieved. That's good, and it's your legacy, your story, and you'll help others in this generation to understand what the Windrush is all about. Yeah.
But there's something that when I speak to my friends, and and it's quite strange. If you were to ask me, do I support England in cricket or the West Indies? I would say it's got to be West Indies. So, although I've been here all this time and England is my home, there are certain things that, you know,
Yeah.
other places will come first. You know, West Indies is still, although I said I don't feel that comfortable, but it's still my home.
Right.
It's still my home.
So, in a way, it's home
Yes.
in terms of sport. But cricket is what you grew up with as a child, I suppose, in the Caribbean. Yeah. So. Can I ask? Another question. You know, as part of the Windrush 75th anniversary, the celebration, we're celebrating it. But then we know there is a lot of people who have been hit by the Windrush scandal, who've been here for years and years, and then to be told that they don't belong and things like that. I mean, your personal view, how do you feel about that? What's happened with those?
Oh.
Just general.
That is really scandalous,
Yes,
isn't it? I mean,
it is. Yeah.
there is no other way to put that. It's scandalous.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's no justification for that, and they need to sort it out as quick as possible, because I know for a fact that the sacrifices that people made, and like I said, when I grew up, when I was growing up, had to stand up to sing God
Yeah.
Save the Queen every morning before we leave. So there was no doubt in my mind that this was the mother country.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in my mind that England was there for us, and that was the. And not only that, I remember saying to someone who was giving me hassle about whether I'm English or whatever it was, and I said to them, well, actually, I'm more English than you. And he said, well, how do you make that? I said, well, I paid to get my citizenship. You haven't. And I said, I'm willing to pay for it, but you wouldn't pay, would you? So, you know, what is the sense? But when some of I had to take out a citizenship as well, just because we were advised to. I think they said, you know, because your passport, you originally come from the Caribbean, although I had a British passport at the time, that I should take on the citizenship. So I actually did that at the time when they were being advised.
Okay, right, yes.
So I sort of. I think we had some advisors going around,
Yes.
and I think that was done through one of the community,
Yes.
maybe Apollo,
Right.
one of the the community
Yes.
establish
Yes.
groups that advise people to take that out.
Well, that's a great service, isn't it?
Yes.
That they were able to do that
To do that.
as part of the community.
I just hope that this Windrush scam will be get it sorted out, and those poor people that have to.
Yeah, very. So, thank you. That was, excellent.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I hope it helps. It's very difficult to recall everything.
It's very educational, and I thanks for your honesty and sharing your story. Will be part of the legacy of the Windrush, and your experiences in Reading.
I'm sure loads of people will have total, different experience, different feelings about things. But yes, that's how I see it.
So thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.